Third African Union Summit in Addis Ababa is underway. The theme this year is silencing the guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development. A commitment that has already been voiced by the leaders 7 years ago to end all wars and conflicts by 2020. But that's clearly not happened. The heads of African states expected to discuss the threat of militancy in the Sahel region and the peace-building efforts in Libya.
A far-reaching joint EU-UN framework on peace and security on the continent. I commend the African Union for making silencing the guns such a prominent part of its work by 2020.
The past 10 years were the hottest on record, and global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. Africa is the least responsible for climate disruption, yet it is among the first and worst to suffer. Its nations need assistance to build resilience to adapt to the inevitable impacts to come.
In his address, the African Union Commission chairperson called upon the United States to remove the Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism.
Se sont engagés dans un courageux processus de négociation avec les groupes armés. Nous les soutenons sans réserve dans cette démarche et appelons la communauté internationale à redoubler d'efforts en soutien à la transition démocratique et consensuelle au Soudan. Dans cet esprit, nous invitons les États-Unis d'Amérique à se joindre à cet effort en sortant le Soudan de la liste des pays parrains du terrorisme.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is also in the Ethiopian capital. His African trip is being looked at by experts as a bid for a rotating seat for Canada on the United Nations Security Council. Canada, Ireland and Norway are vying for 2 seats that open up next year, voting for which will be held on the 17th of June. Africa has 54 out of 193 votes at the United Nations. During his visit, Trudeau met Ethiopian women entrepreneurs in an effort to boost trade between the two sides. This is the 33rd edition of the African Union Summit, with the overarching theme being silencing the guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development. A number of issues that have surfaced on the table so far, and a reiteration of the commitment that the leaders had made about 7 years ago to end all wars and conflicts by the year 2020, and that's something that this year's discussions also focus on. In his address, the African Union Commission has also called upon the U.S. to remove the Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism, like we just said.
I don't want to try to Charles, but
we also saw a statement coming in from the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the U.S.'s West Asia peace plan. And the strong statement had also lashed out at the very fact that the Palestine sentiment was clearly ignored. During his visit, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also met several leaders there and also representatives of women entrepreneurial units. Joining us on the broadcast this minute is Coletta Vinjohi from Addis Ababa. Coletta, a lot of those issues that have surfaced on the table, but a reiteration of the commitment that was made 7 years ago, and something that the leaders have failed at is ending those conflicts by the year 2020. Do we see a revision of that target this time around?
Well, the focus of this year's, the theme of this year's African Union Summit has been the issue of silencing the guns. And the continent has accepted that over the years, it has done very little to assist different African countries to stop contracted conflicts as well as emerging ones. So the continent hopes that within this year, it will be able to reach out to these countries and give an African-centered solution. It is one of the things that has been, talked about. They have said most of the conflicts are being tried to be solved by non-African parties. So the continent hopes that during this year, the African continent will be able to reach out to these African countries and give them solutions, and maybe peace solutions that will be both, will be branded and also felt to be from the Africans for the Africans.
Right, and we also saw a very strongly worded statement coming in from the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the US's West Asia peace plan. Coletta, if my voice is going through to you? All right, we seem to have lost that connection with Coletta Vanjohi, but as Coletta was telling us, a lot of those issues with the overarching theme has been the resolve that was made years ago to try and end the conflicts that have ravaged several parts of the African continent, and a reiteration of that commitment by the leaders.